The Alien franchise is one of the most influential sci-fi franchises in media history, up there with Star Wars, Star Trek, and Terminator. And like those franchises, it has some epic highs and some epic lows. And with the new Alien Earth show coming out this month, I'm gonna do something I've been wanting to do for a while. So for this video, I'm going to be reviewing the first 4 Alien movies, or as I'm gonna call them, the Ripley Saga. Starting with Alien is a perfect movie. You know how Quentin Tarantino went on Jimmy Kimmel and discussed what he thinks makes a perfect movie?
A perfect movie kind of crosses all aesthetics to one degree or another. Might not be your cup of tea, but there's nothing you can say to bring it down.
Well, I think Alien falls under that category. You can't really say anything bad about this movie. I mean, you can dislike it on the grounds that you're not a fan of horror or sci-fi, but you can't really say that it fails at either of those genres. You just can't. And it's fascinating to me that it is a masterwork in both of those genres, especially when it was made by a director who had no experience in either. Before this, Ridley Scott, or Wrigley Scott as my parents call him, only had one feature film under his belt, a period piece called The Duelist, which is also a very good movie that I'd recommend watching. So the fact that this movie is this good from a then inexperienced director is awesome. What makes Alien work as a horror movie is this claustrophobic vibe that makes the audience feel uncomfortable the entire time the alien is on board. It doesn't rely heavily on jump scares to frighten its audience. I mean, it does feature a couple, but it relies more on the high tension of being stuck in a confined space with a hostile creature. It also really relies on the fear of the unknown. The chest-bursting scenes are a great example of this. You have this small dining room filled with people panicking, not understanding what's wrong with their friend, and then suddenly he starts bleeding from his chest, and out comes this disturbing looking creature. It really is the tensest scene in the movie. Now, granted, the little baby alien running away looks a little silly by today's standards.
Hello, my baby! Hello, my honey!
But it doesn't really take away from the rest of the scene. I think the art direction of this movie is really good. It's so cool to see how people from the 70s thought the future would look. The tech is very analog and bulky, and it gives the universe a very unique style. And it's a real shame that later movies would drop this aesthetic. I also really like how dirty it is. Like, this is a mucky universe. It's a spaceship, but the walls are all worn down, the crew are wearing dirty overalls. It really makes the universe feel lived in. It takes a lot of inspiration from Star Wars in terms of the aesthetic of a lived-in sci-fi world. In fact, Alien owes a lot to Star Wars. In the 70s, no one really cared for the script. They thought it was stupid. But then, Star Wars came out in 77, blew everyone's minds, and studios were looking for the next big sci-fi film, making Alien a hot commodity. But I think they took that art decor and dialed it up to 11. This is a much grubbier universe than Star Wars, and I think it works so well. But what really makes this movie is the influence of H.R. Giger. When thinking on the look of the alien, Ridley Scott came across a book called the Necronomicon, a book featuring art by H.R. Giger. His bizarre biomechanical, psychosexual designs are in equal parts disturbing and beautiful. Like, you feel kinda sick looking at it, but you also can't stop looking at it, you know? So of course, Ridley Scott asked him to design the alien. The look of this thing is incredible. You find yourself both terrified and mesmerized by the look of it. And I like that Scott chooses not to show you too much of it, never really showing the creature properly until the end of the movie where Ripley finally defeats it. It adds to the mystery and the fear of the unknown that permeates through this movie. As for the characters, I really like all of them. A lot of the time in movies that follow a group of people, and that's including later Alien movies, you end up not really remembering half of them. But in this movie, I'd say everyone is very memorable, and they all work as an ensemble. I think the very natural dialogue works to create this effect. In scenes where they're just having food or arguing, it never really feels like the actors are reading from a script, but are having genuine conversations that people would have. But the one that really stands out, of course, is Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
This is the role that more or less made Weaver's career, and it's easy to see why. She does such a great job of portraying this level-headed, forward-thinking character, and even as the movie goes on and the situation becomes more and more dire, you see her desperately trying to hold on to this level-headedness, which ultimately helps her to survive until the end. It is such a good performance, and it's weird to think that the role nearly went to Meryl Streep before Weaver took it. I mean, Streep would have done a good job with it, but you can't really picture anyone else but Sigourney in this role. Now, as someone who watched these movies in the 2010s, I already knew that Ripley was the main protagonist. But if you try and imagine yourself as someone watching this for the first time back in 1977, was it 1977? 1 second. Oh shit, no. But if you try and imagine yourself as someone watching this for the first time back in 1979, you don't really know who the main character is. You initially assume it's Dallas. He's the captain of the ship, he comes off as fairly heroic, breaking rules to save his crew member and choosing to go and fight the alien himself instead of making someone else do it. That's a main protagonist shit right there. But then he dies towards the final third of the movie, and Ripley steps up to take charge. The one who's been following the rules and thinking logically about how to handle the situation. I can imagine people watching the movie for the first time not really liking Ripley all that much. The annoying character telling people off for not obeying the rules when they're trying to save lives.
Wait a minute. If we let it in, the ship could be infected. You know the quarantine procedure.
24 hours contamination.
But on the second watch I go, you know what, she actually makes a lot of good points. Just about all the decisions the supposed hero makes in the movie more or less leads to everyone's deaths. It's a really good bait and switch that works really well, and encourages rewatches, which is always a plus. And another character that you look at very differently on a rewatch is Ash. While I already knew that Ripley was going to end up as the main character by the end of the movie, I really wasn't expecting the twist with Ash. When you first see him, you think he's just a nice medic who's simply doing what he can to help. But then you find out he's an android working towards the company's agenda. Weyland-Yutani is this evil looming over the movie, but Ash acting as the embodiment of that evil helps hammer it forward. It's interesting to see on a rewatch how he manipulates everyone to get what he wants. All of the little details that you miss on the first time round. Now, like all four of these movies, there's of course a director's cut. And I gotta say, I kind of prefer the director's cut. Not because I think it works better narratively, which is what I would say about later movies, but more because I like seeing the extra stuff added in. By the way, this is the only director's cut that I know of that's actually shorter than the theatrical cut. The added scene of Ripley finding Dallas and Brett and seeing what the alien is doing to them is so disturbing. I'm actually not a big fan of the idea of them being turned into eggs, and that's how the eggs are made, and I'm kinda happy that they dropped that idea in the next movie, but the gruesome nature of the scene is really cool. But my personal favourite added scene is where Lambert smacks Ripley after Ripley refused to let them back on the ship. In the original film it felt like the characters kind of brushed that off, but in this cut it's addressed and it works to set Ripley apart from all of the other characters as the one willing to use logic and reason. Alien is a perfect movie. It's a masterwork in filmmaking and I will not be taking any other opinions. 10 out of 10. I hope Ripley gets home safely. Aliens is fucking amazing. Alien itself is already a hell of a movie to follow up, so the fact that they managed to pull it off is incredible. This is probably the second best sequel ever made. We all know what the first one is. Thing is, by all accounts, this shouldn't have worked. Following up this intense, self-contained horror movie with a balls-to-the-wall action movie is such a huge change, but it works. Moral of the story, never doubt James Cameron. Aliens, kinda, picks up where the first movie left off. Ripley gets rescued after being in cryosleep for over 50 years.
How long?
57 years.
She struggles to adjust back into civilian life after the events of the first movie, and now she has to go back to face the alien again. And I think that this is a great idea for a sequel. Like, a lesser writer would have just done a repeat of the first movie with Ripley just going, oh, here we bloody go again. But instead, you subvert the story of the first one. Rather than Ripley being confronted by the unknown, in this one, she goes to confront the unknown. It honestly works better for her character rather than just having the same thing happen to her again. Her willingly going to face the monsters that have basically ruined her life makes her so much more interesting as a character. I think Sigourney Weaver is phenomenal in this movie. She was great in the first one, but here she really amps it up. You can see why she got the Oscar nomination for this one. The character of Ripley gets fleshed out a lot more in this movie compared to the first one, particularly her maternal side. Her relationship with the character of Newt is just so heartwarming and gives Ripley the courage she needs to properly face her fears.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Joining Ripley for this movie is a new crew, the Colonial Marines, and they are all fun to watch. I like that this movie separates them from the Nostromo crew. Instead of making them just another group of average Joes, they make them army jocks. These larger-than-life characters with so much charisma. They have this camaraderie towards each other that's great to see. My mates and I at uni would always quote these guys because we love them so much.
You know the drill, assholes and elbows.
Man, you look just like I feel.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
God, I miss those days. But yeah, the Marines were really cool. I think the most popular to come out of this was definitely Hudson, played by the late Bill Paxton. He adds a lot of humor to a fairly bleak movie. It's really fun to see him start off as this overconfident badass who eventually goes to water after they all get their asses handed to them. It's just good to have such a fun character in a movie as dark as this one. And yeah, Hicks is cool. It's weird to think that Michael Biehn was a last-minute casting choice because the original guy got arrested on drug possession. There's a parallel world where these two are Ripley and Hicks. But yeah, Michael Biehn knocks it right out the park. You know how Aragorn is usually seen as the female gaze, the male character that strongly appeals to women? Well, I'm not really one to... Oh, fuck off. Well, I can see Hicks falling under that category too. Like, oh, a man who will listen to me? Oh. But I really enjoyed the chemistry between him and Ripley. It's good to see people finally pay attention to her for once. Oh, speaking of which, this movie still keeps its anti-capitalist roots, only this time, instead of the android being the embodiment of the soulless corporate agenda, by the way, Bishop is awesome and Lance Henriksen is the man, it's the company man, Burke, played by Paul Reiser, who does a good job with this role. Burke starts off as this very friendly face who seems to listen to Ripley and takes her advice, but then takes a serious turn once he sniffs out a profit to be made. When he leaves Ripley and Newt to be face-hugged, it feels like a proper betrayal, which makes his inevitable comeuppance all the more satisfying. Never trust a capitalist. But you know what? I should start talking about the titular characters, the aliens.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
And I gotta say, while they're still amazing, the novelty has slightly worn off a bit. Don't get me wrong, it's not by much. They're still as terrifying when they need to be. While in the first movie, the alien feels like an unstoppable force in nature that can attack you at any point, these ones get mowed down by the dozens. It's a consequence of switching up the genre to action. You kinda need cannon fodder. I mean, it makes sense for trained soldiers to stand a better chance against the aliens than space truckers, but when even Ripley, who's not a soldier, is mowing them down, I don't know, it just bugs me a little. So yeah, the aliens lose some points, but don't worry, they get them back with the best entry in the franchise. The Alien Queen. Like, this is one of the best character intros in cinematic history. Ripley finds Newt after they got separated, but then everything goes silent, and they notice they're surrounded by eggs. They are in a nest. We follow Ripley's gaze as she notices a fresh egg being laid, and the camera slowly pans across this huge egg sac that's connected to this giant insect-like creature, which begins to wake up. And it's only then that the music starts playing. It's one of the most ominous introduction scenes ever put to film. It still gets me even today, arguably the best oh shit moment in a movie full of oh shit moments. And I think the design of this thing is incredible. The puppeteer work is so good. It even holds up today, unlike some other movies in this franchise. Now again, this movie has a director's cut, which I do prefer over the theatrical. But unlike the first movie, where I felt the director's cut added some cool scenes to an already great movie, I think the director's cut here seriously improves the story. I think because Fox wanted the runtime to be cut down so that they could fit more screenings of the movie in a day, because of this, some key elements were taken out, like Newt's dad being the colonist who brought the alien to the colony, or Hudson's bragging right before encountering the alien horde. But the most egregious cut from the theatrical version is the Amanda Ripley subplot. You see, in the director's cut, we learned that Ripley had a daughter that she was returning to in the first movie, but because she was in cryostasis for so long, her daughter grew up and passed away while she was sleeping. Or did she? This is honestly the most ridiculous thing to cut out of the movie. It adds consequence to Ripley's incredibly long cryosleep, and it adds context to her relationship with Newt, two survivors who've both lost family to xenomorphs, finding each other and looking out for one another. And it adds more depth to the final fight between a mother who lost years with her daughter because of these monsters and fighting to protect her surrogate daughter, and a mother who has now lost all of her children and wants revenge. You guys are idiots. Now, would I say that this movie is better than the first one? Honestly, it depends on preference. I feel the same way about these two, the way I feel about New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, where I just flip-flop over which one I think is better. It really depends on my mood. I think for now, I'm gonna say the first one is better because I really enjoy the atmosphere of that movie. But I might feel differently tomorrow, I don't know. Let me know what you think. You know, after you've liked and subscribed, of course. Anyway, Aliens is a sequel that shouldn't have worked, but worked so well and in the best way possible. 10 out of 10, can't wait to see what happens to Newton Hicks. Alien 3 is okay. I know that might be something of a controversial opinion, but I think this one gets a little overhated, even if I believe some of the hate is justified. To me, this movie has the same issue as The Godfather Part 3. Decent movie in its own right, but rubbish in comparison to the previous two movies that set the bar really high. To be fair, I completely get why fans hated this movie. For starters, Newton Hicks, who became fan favorites after Aliens, were unceremoniously killed off screen. And yeah, that got me in a bad mood too. I don't mind killing characters off, but this is not how you do it, where you just cheapen the ending of the previous movie. Now, while it would have been difficult to bring back Newt, as there were 6 years between these movies, and actress Carrie Henn of course grew up in that time, you still could have recast, and you definitely could have brought back Michael Biehn as Hicks. This movie tries to bring the franchise back to basics, with one alien tearing apart a group of average Joes. And yeah, I get the thought process behind that, but it feels more like a regression rather than a continuation of the story. The previous movie developed the story in such a way that you can't really go back. Remember how I said Aliens avoided the trap of repeating the first one? Well, this one fell right into it. Even the pacing is off in this movie. While in the other two, we don't really see an alien for about an hour or so into the runtime, it never really feels like that because they're both very well paced. They keep you enticed in the story. While in this, you really feel the runtime. I was just sat there bored as hell and just waiting for something to happen. As for the alien itself, I mean, they tried something, it just didn't work.
Brother,
While it looks good whenever it's a practical model, the VFX just aren't really there. Like, the lighting on the alien doesn't really fit the scene, the green on the green screen isn't really keyed out properly, it's just not a good look. And to be fair, they're attempting something that CG technology just isn't ready yet to pull off. I do like that they mix it up and it comes from an animal this time rather than a human, and I like the idea that the alien takes on traits of its host. That's a good idea, but the way they went about it for the time, they definitely bit off more than they could chew. Now look, I'm honestly a little forgiving of this movie's shortcomings because the entire production of this movie was a fucking nightmare. The script had writer after writer come in and pen a story only for Fox to just shut them down. Originally, this movie was going to be set on Earth. There was even a teaser for that version.
on Earth, everyone can hear you scream.
Oh, that's embarrassing. Well, better late than never, right? Then it was going to be set on a prison planet and then a monastery planet. that was made of wood, which is probably the most bizarre concept that I actually wouldn't minded seeing. I would love that visual. It was basically just a game of hot potato with writers and directors coming on and leaving. When even William Gibson, the father of cyberpunk, can't get this project to work, you know it's fucked. Anyway, the job was given to a young David Fincher. This was his movie debut. And yeah, he's gone on to do some amazing movies since then. Seven, The Game, The Social Network, all of it is great stuff. And if you're a little surprised that this is a Fincher film, despite the fact it doesn't have that Fincher flair that all of his other movies have, that's fair. I don't think even he views this as his movie. Fox was supposedly giving him daily notes, restricting his ideas, and just really making this one of the worst work environments you could have as a director, let alone an up-and-coming director. So the script is basically the prison planet idea and the monastery planet idea mashed together, in a way that doesn't really give either time to shine. The religion that the convicts practice isn't really that fleshed out, being brushed off as a form of Christianity. A kind of world building that would have been interesting to explore. And as for the prison idea, that kinda works, but also falls apart when you think about it. This is a prison without weapons or guards. Like, how does that work?
It's almost hurtful to me to watch her be so dumb.
I said this movie was okay, didn't I? Okay, enough complaining. Let's talk about stuff I actually like in this movie. While I think this is probably the weakest group of characters so far, despite the stellar cast, I do like some of the new characters, particularly Dylan, Clemens, and Morse. I like the theme of redemption that these characters represent. All men with horrible pasts that desperately want to be better. And this culminates in the finale, where everyone bands together to defeat the alien. I mean, yeah, shitty CG aside, it's actually a gripping sequence. The tension is pretty palpable in the third act. This is honestly what saves the movie for me. I also don't mind Ripley's journey in this movie. I like that she is carrying an alien embryo, and that her final act in life is finally getting rid of the monsters that have taken everything from her, and not allowing the company that's manipulated her to get what they want. Her falling into the furnace, clutching the baby alien that's desperately trying to escape, is so poetic. That scene alone almost made me forget about the rest of the movie. And yeah, like the other two, this movie has a director's cut. Oh wait, sorry, an assembly cut. Apparently Fincher hated working on this movie so much that he had nothing to do with the alternate cut. And yeah, if I was treated like shit, I'd probably act the same way. Now I'm not gonna lie, I haven't actually seen this cut. I tried looking for a digital version, but got nothing. Apparently you can't get it off of Prime in the UK, which is why I use today's sponsor, NordVPN. I'm kidding, I'm not big enough for sponsorship, but I hear it's a lot better than the theatrical, so much so that it's almost a different movie. Instead of a dog, the alien comes out of an ox, which I think kinda works a bit better because this thing is fucking huge. Paul McGann apparently gets more to do, which I love to hear, always good to see a Doctor Who actor doing well. Alien 3 was an example of what happens when you don't let your filmmakers do their bloody job. There are some things I like about it that could have made it better if they were more explored, but it doesn't bloody matter because the studio just refused to let Fincher do his thing. 5 out of 10. Well, that's the end of Ripley, right? Alien Resurrection is bad. If Alien 3 was a rehash of the original, then this movie is just a parody of the franchise. And I think the core reason why this movie doesn't work for me is the writer, Joss Whedon.
No, God!
Yeah, look, I don't like Joss Whedon as much as the next person, but personality aside, he did write some good scripts in his day. And I gotta admit, some of the ideas in this story are good. You can see how a lot of it was eventually recycled into Firefly, which is a really good show. But the problem here is that his style of writing just doesn't fit Alien. He usually writes fun action comedies with a lot of heart, and that's just not Alien. And it clashed with what director Jean Jean-Pierre Jeunet wanted. He wanted to do a more serious movie in line with the previous ones. So you have a clash of tones here that really makes the movie feel very unfocused. So this movie completely undoes the ending of Alien 3 by bringing Ripley back, which I think is a really big problem. Like I said, I actually like Ripley's sacrifice at the end of the third one, and again the next movie cheapens the ending of the previous one. Somehow Ripley returned. The excuse they used to bring her back is cloning, which also brings back the alien she was carrying? Not sure how that works, because that would imply that they got the DNA from her on the prison planet, which would be impossible, because she was incinerated. But because of this, she's now an enhanced version of Ripley. Stronger, faster, good at basketball, and has acidic blood, like the alien. Now, I get why you'd bring her back. Sigourney Weaver is basically the face of the franchise. My problem is that this just isn't Ripley. This is a completely different character wearing Ripley's face, and it's not the same person that we've been following for 3 whole movies. I'd be more forgiving of this if she were characterized like Ripley. But she's not. She's now a superhuman weirdo, but you're not sure if she's just gonna snap and kill everyone. She's basically River from Firefly. You know, if River was also uncomfortably horny.
Who do I have to fuck to get off this boat?
What?
I just can't connect with this version of Ripley the same way I could with the previous one, even if Sigourney Weaver seems to be having the time of her life with this role. As for the crew that Ripley finds herself with this time round, they're okay. It's basically the Serenity crew, but done worse. Again, I just can't really connect with them the same way I could with the Marines. The Colonial Marines were overconfident arseholes, but there was a sense of camaraderie among them, and you got to know them as the movie went on and see how they developed. While I never really get that feeling with this crew, they never seem to like each other that much, and they don't really develop. They start off as arseholes, and they end the movie as arseholes. Now, I will say that I do like Winona Ryder's character, because I just think she's pretty neat. I'm not going to explain myself. As for the aliens, they're also a little off in this one. I'm not a huge fan of how wet they are. The ones from the earlier movies look so pretty, but these ones just look greasy as hell. I also don't really like how they just kill one of their own in such a savage way. I know I'm being really nitpicky right now with this one, but I always got a sense that the aliens are kind of a tight-knit community. They're monsters, but they look out for each other, you know? Like the way the Queen really loves her children so much that she'll go through fucking outer space just to kill Ripley. Or in Alien 3 when the xenomorph won't even touch Ripley because she's got an alien embryo in her. They really seem like a tight community, so this scene really feels out of place to me. But the biggest sin this movie does with the aliens is the human-alien hybrid.
What's that? What's that, brother?
This thing looks fucking disgusting. Any dark, twisted beauty that came from Giga's original design for the xenomorph is completely stripped away here. They give it human features in the face, like eyes and all that, and the idea is to make it look cute and sympathetic. But no, it's not cute. I have no love for this creature. And apparently this thing had giant male and female genitalia that they had to CG out of the final cut. Like, why would you have that in the first place? Could have lowered your VFX budget by just not doing that. Horrible design. That's a cool death scene though. I think the saving grace for me in this movie is the action. I don't mind some of the action in this movie. I mean, it doesn't really fit this franchise, it's a little more comical and over the top than the other movies, but on its own, yeah, it's alright. I particularly enjoyed the underwater scenes. It's something new that we haven't seen before and it's very well done. I think the CG on the aliens is a lot better than the previous movie, and it's fun to see the characters try and get away through a high-pressured scenario while holding their breath. Now again, there is an extended version of this movie, and I haven't seen this one either. Not because I couldn't find it, like with Alien 3, but because I didn't want to.
Oh my god.
I already sat through the version that's on Disney Plus, and I wasn't gonna watch it again just to see an extra scene with Ripley in dystopian Paris. That just doesn't seem worth it to me. Alien Resurrection is just a dumb movie. You can enjoy it if you're into that, and I know some fans do, but when you're part of a franchise that is so much smarter than this, it's very disappointing to see this story just become schlock. 3 out of 10, hope that's the last alien hybrid I ever see. So that's my review of the Ripley Saga. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for further content. Do you want me to do the other Alien movies? Let me know. Have a good day.